With 4 of their starters missing, the Golden State Warriors have lost their first game of the preseason, but not before giving us a third look at what's to come in the regular season. That is, the second unit comprised of Brandon Podziemski, Buddy Hield, Jonathan Kaminga, and Quentin Post. Instead of GP2, Steve ran that lineup with Draymond Green, who was still available to play. Curry, Butler, Moody, and Horford were all unavailable for different reasons. Horford and Curry were being rested, Butler for personal reasons, and Moses Moody has a calf issue, so he will be out for the rest of the preseason. The Warriors did, however, concede that there is an ankle injury for Jimmy Butler, which will keep him out of the next go-around with the Portland Trailblazers. That's going to be something to look out for, as this changes a few things for the Warriors moving forward. The Lakers, on the other hand, were missing Luka, LeBron, Marcus Smart, and Maxi Kleber. This makes both rosters somewhat comparable in that they were missing the same amount of talent. There was, however, a problem that is all too common when it comes to the Warriors or just about anyone else playing the Lakers: the free throw shooting disparity. Now get ready. You're about to get switched. There are 3 things in life that are certain: death, taxes, and the Los Angeles Lakers getting the favored whistle. The difference was so noticeable, they managed to get Draymond Green to complain in a preseason game.
You're done. You're done. Yeah, I'm not playing it anymore. My younger brother used to dog me in video games. So I was like, this is not for me. Another reason why.
All right, free throw time for Jake LaRavia. She born in Pasadena.
With 35 free throws to the Warriors' 8, this is very worrying. What makes matters even worse is that the Warriors have more points in the paint, 64-52, than the Lakers. A 3-5 free throw differential is somewhat insignificant, and in the last game against the Lakers, they only had 6 more than Golden State, a game which ended in a loss for LA. It's almost as if someone made the call to make an adjustment. Or something. The NBA will never beat the allegations, but it would be unfair to say the Warriors didn't have their fair share of issues. While he continued to show improvement, dishing out 6 assists in 22 minutes, Jonathan Kaminga's 5 turnovers continue to be a sore point for the Warriors. This is obviously a new role that will take some time to get used to. The specific issues can easily be cleaned up. For example, dribbling while being guarded by 3 or more defenders isn't something that happens much when Steph is on the floor. And if he is, we've seen how that ends up. With proper spacing, that becomes less of an issue. On another possession, he misses Guy Santos wide open for the kick and ends up getting blocked. With more time spent as the primary distributor on the second unit, he more easily recognizes his teammates' spots and where they like to shoot. You might say Jimmy didn't really have that issue when he came, and you'd be right. That's because as the leader, Jimmy dictates where the players are supposed to be on the court instead of players moving all over the floor. As a primary distributor, however, being a leader and directing your guys is commensurate with the position. With everything else, he simply needs to get more reps. The other problem that the Warriors had was their 3-point shooting. Of their 43 attempts, the Warriors made just 14 shots for less than 33% from distance overall. The biggest culprit was Buddy Hield, who was 0 for 3. Santos, Spencer, and Richard were 1 of 5, 1 of 5, and 1 of 6 respectively, which explains a lot of the Warriors' struggles. Despite everything we've discussed so far, things weren't all bad. What we noticed was Brandon Podziemski quietly having his best game of the preseason with 23 points, 8 assists, and 5 rebounds in 26 minutes while shooting an efficient 10 for 16 from the field and 3 of 7 from deep. He led the team in both points and assists, as well as a team-high +6 net rating. The overall numbers don't quite tell the whole story on his performance, however, because he struggled somewhat earlier on in the game, making only 2 of his first 5 attempts. As his minutes went up and he warmed up, he was able to make a huge impact, hitting 7 of his last 9 shots. Something we've always noticed with Pods is that he plays a much better overall game the longer he stays on the floor. This brought up an interesting query to Steve's mic, however, regarding the starting 2-guard spot on the roster.
Considering, Moses is missing the rest of preseason, and the way you continue to say Pods is playing, I mean, is he pretty penciled in at that starting 2-guard to start the year, would you say?
I can't say that yet. We've got to see where we are. I mean, Brandon's going to play a ton. The starting lineup, frankly, is a little tricky for us. If Al were a little younger, he'd be in the starting lineup for sure. But if he's going to play limited minutes, it's tougher to start him and finish the game, if he's not playing as many minutes as he would have a few years ago. So we still have a lot to think about.
So it's likely we'll see some of Pods at the 2 with Moody at 3, the same lineup as last year with Jimmy at the 4 and Dre at the 5. With Butler's current injury and injury history, it's possible we see Kerr go between Horford at the 5 and Dre at the 4, or Kaminga at the 4 with either Dre or Horford at the 5. If JK, who put up 13 points on 5 of 8 from the field to go with his 6 assists, continues on that path, this lineup with him at the 4 could gain some traction. Speaking of JK, this poster on Jake LaRavia was absolutely insane. The way he got up, you'd think he was throwing the laid up until he punched it home. There aren't many in the league who can run a fast break like JK. On the ball, however, we can see him trying to put his offensive game together, as well as being a distributor. And again, as I've said before, the preseason is the best time to work on supporting aspects of your game. Since he is in fact trying to incorporate the coach's recommendations, it's likely he gets a bit more leeway in refining this part of his game. With Moody and Butler out next game and maybe the following game, it's likely he gets into the starting lineup next to Curry, Podge, Draymond, and Al for both. This should reveal a ton of information about the depth of the Warriors. Speaking of depth, Trayce Jackson-Davis showed that he's not to be forgotten on the roster. It's tough to find minutes on a team that prioritizes shooting as the team's only non-shooting center. However, TJD finished up the night with 14 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 20 minutes, showing that he's still good enough to be a part of the second unit. In order to get Trayce on the floor, the Warriors would need a stretch 4. We've seen Kerr play him alongside Post, and that didn't go too well. He might fare better next to Horford, but TJD doesn't play the 4 very well, so until the Warriors get a player like Markkanen, he might see limited floor time unless a trade comes along. Lastly, we have yet to see any sign of Seth Curry. Kerr's last comments on the chef's younger brother had him ramping up, but his presence on the court before mid to late November is unlikely at this point. The Warriors have him listed as injured. However, it's not exactly clear if he has an injury or just poor conditioning. Both are a bit concerning as he was signed to the team on an Exhibit 9. He'll be waived to start the regular season as the team can't carry him over due to salary cap rules. However, he will be re-signed in November. While his missing the preseason will put him a bit behind, considering he will likely be in a limited role, it probably won't have a lot of impact on what we can expect to see from Seth this season. There are some interesting lineups that the Warriors could use for the second-ranked three-point shooter based on percentages that'll make this team even deeper than what we've discussed so far. Beyond Seth, Melton should be making his return sometime after, possibly in December, which then shakes things up again for the Warriors. The most important thing for this team, however, as they go through different iterations, growths of players, and return from injury, is continuity. If they can maintain that same or similar identity through different iterations, it'll be much easier to win games night in and night out on back-to-backs and between units. A lot of this rests on the team's most athletic young wing in Jonathan Kaminga. If he can package his offensive game with the type of passing we've seen in the preseason, it'll raise the team's ceiling unlike what anyone else on the team is capable of doing. If all 3 of JK, Pods, and Moody make a leap, this will shape up to be a very interesting season, especially in those non-Steph minutes. Things are looking like the late Dynasty Spurs, and we all know how that went. Let me know if you guys agree. Who do you think will make the leap this year? Also, while I'm not surprised by the injuries, the team has enough depth to withstand most absences as long as Steph Curry is healthy. While Butler's injury is more serious than initially thought, I'm expecting the same 55 to 60 games from him. Don't forget to post your thoughts in the comments below. And thanks for watching. Till next time, swish.